D'Angelo. Here. Mr. Duffy.
Here.
Mr. Froyo.
Here.
Mr. Iovino.
Here.
Mrs. Rivera-Rogers. Here. Mr. Altrino. Here. Mr. Winslow.
Here.
Superintendent Smith.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Kasabian. Here. Ms. Oliver. Student Representative Caitlin Averill.
Thank you. The first order of business is the approval of minutes from the executive session of June 8th and the regular session of June 8th. Mr. Iovino moves. The second. All in favor on the minutes?
Aye.
The second item is public comment. Now is the time for anyone in the audience to address the committee on the topics of tonight's agenda. Not seeing any, we will consider that portion of the meeting closed and move on to item number 3, deliberation. And we have in the deliberations subcommittee updates. Do we have any reports from subcommittees? Ms. Rivera-Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Policy Subcommittee met prior to the meeting today, which was at 5:45. At the meeting, we had discussion, and we approved a student activity accounts guidelines for the Malden Public School System. At this moment, I would like Mr. Winslow, that took the minutes, to go through the minutes. And after Mr. Winslow, I'd appreciate if Irene Oliver, our business manager, would come to the podium and be open for questions that the school committee as a whole may have for her at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera-Rogers. Mr. Winslow.
Yeah, the subcommittee on policy approved a motion to adopt the student activity account guidelines for the Malden Public Schools that was presented to the committee with a few amendments. The maximum amount allowed in the student activity account would be $100,000. If in the event that monies are held over for the senior class, then the advisors, the class officers would have to submit a request to specify what that money was going to be spent for and the amount of money. That was an amendment proposed by Mr. Duffy. And then related to collection of funds, that the faculty advisor would collect funds and safeguard those if they're collected over the weekend. So those were three sets of recommendations that were offered as amendments to what was recommended, and then the committee on a 4-0 vote recommended that these guidelines be adopted by the school committee. So.
Thank you, Mr. Winslow. Questions on the report? We're going to have Ms. Oliver come forward as well. Do we need her to come forward now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Oliver.
At this time, while Ms. Oliver is coming forward, I'd like to thank Don Fermano, the controller, was also in attendance at this meeting, which had major input in the guidelines that were voted by this committee as a whole. I also want to thank Mr. Altrino. Mr. Altrino, at the beginning of the school year, had concerns about the student activity accounts, and he brought it forth to the school committee as a whole to be sent to policy. It had been tabled for many meetings, but we finally come with a document that should be acceptable by the committee as a whole. At that time, moving forward, Mr. John Fermano, the student activity accounts will be audited at the end of this school year, and Mr. Fermano with our business manager, Irene Oliver, will come back in September with results of that said audit. So being that said, if any school members have any questions for Ms. Oliver. Mr. Chairman,
questions on the report or of the business manager regarding the activity accounts policies as proposed? Ms. Zabra, let me hold you for 1 second and make sure there aren't any school committee members first, and then no. Mr. Altrino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Ms. Rivera-Rogers said, I brought this forward at the beginning as a result of an audit done in 2007 and 2008, which the audit firm had some concerns. One of the main concerns was to put a policy together. I got together with Ms. Oliver and Mr. Fermano, and Ms. Oliver put a nice 20-page document together with input from Mr. Fermano and others, and we went through it the last hour or so before the meeting. And there are 7 members at the meeting, actually. So I think it covered every base, especially following Mass General Law. So I recommend that we do pass this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Altrino. Ms. Zaba.
Thank you. Is this about the class officer funds for the senior year, right?
Does it include class officer funds?
And so...
Yes, it does, according to Ms. Oliver.
So what happens with the class officer funds for this year? Like the class 2009 funds?
The student officers will write a letter to myself as the business manager, recommending either bequesting the monies be used for the freshman class coming in as the senior class, or purchasing a gift in the senior's name to the school, for instance, maybe a flagpole or a monument or anything that you might think might be in memory of the students. And then we'll transfer those monies over into the checking account, and the account will write out a check to the student treasurer.
Oh. All right, thank you.
You're
Because
welcome.
I think we're going to give it to the freshman class. I don't know.
Okay.
I was just making sure we could do that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Welcome. Other questions for coming back to you, Ms. Rivera-Rogers? Any other
Yes,
new before? Any other new voices? Ms. Rivera-Rogers?
No, just answering your question. If you do recall, on scholarship night, the class of 2006, the officers made scholarship presentations to the graduating seniors this year. So that's what they did with their excess funds. They presented scholarships for the class of 2009.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions on the proposed guidelines? None?
Okay.
Thank you, Irene.
Mr. Chairman, at this moment, I'd like to thank Mr. Altrino, Mr. Winslow, Mr. Duffy, Mr. Furio, as a matter of fact, the entire student body. Mr. Iovino was at all our policy subcommittee meetings. Majority of the school committee attended several policy subcommittee meetings this year. So we respect and appreciate their support. I'd like to thank Irene Olive for the hard work that she's done with this, Don Fermano, and we're looking forward to an audit report in September, our first school meeting. I'd also like to thank the superintendent, because the superintendent overlooks all our policies that are being brought forth. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the body as a whole.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera-Rogers. So do we have a vote here proposed?
I'd like to move the student activity accounts guidelines for our Malden public school system.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions? We'll call the roll on the proposed motion to adopt. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Crowe? Yes. Mrs. D'Angelo?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Foyle?
Yes.
Mr. Iovino?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera-Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Altrino?
Yes.
Mr. Winslow?
Yes.
Mayor Howard?
Passes, but yes on the recommendations. Thank you to the subcommittee for the work. Any other subcommittee updates while we are on that topic? None? One? Mr. Froyo?
All right, I'd like to make a motion that the chairman appoint an ad hoc committee to study the vocational programs, study and hopefully improve the vocational courses at Malden High School. And I'd like to be a member of that committee.
Seconded by Mr. Iovino. Any other questions on the directive? Ms. Rivera-Rogers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As a matter of fact, this ad hoc committee would study other communities and their vocational programs that they have. Is that the recommendation that's going to be given, or the guidelines that are going to be given to the ad hoc?
Well, I think the chair would see a range of topics that subcommittee would consider. Certainly the renovations to Malden High School being one. The trend of vocational ed classes in a comprehensive high school, non-technical high school, that is. So I think there are several things that the committee would probably have to take into consideration in its effort to come back with some recommendations.
Okay. So being that said, I'd appreciate being on the ad hoc
All
committee.
kinds of volunteers for this
Thank you.
subject. Okay.
Not me.
Any other questions on the proposal to establish the subcommittee? Otherwise, we can move. Ms. Crow.
When this, when this topic was brought up, I thought the purpose was actually to have, obviously, school committee members, but as well some representative from like the VOC or some of the other colleges to really look at, what the trends are and where it's going. So besides the school committee members, there will be other representatives?
Yeah, we have to check our policies. I don't know whether or not on the subcommittee you can actually have non-school committee member participation, but you can certainly ask.
Right.
For
well, then I think maybe it
input
needs to
from
be in
community members and other vocational education policymakers, experts, people that are currently in the field. So I would assume that information would come back through the inquiries made by the subcommittee, whether or not there are people in the industry sitting on the subcommittee would have to check that. But if there's latitude to have outside representation, the chair would certainly entertain that.
Thank you.
Mr. Duff.
Perhaps this is an opportunity to put an open invitation out there for anyone to submit in writing their recommendations or their thoughts and opinions on where we could go with this committee, and just try to gather as much information for the subcommittee's review as possible.
Well, we're sure that the subcommittee will post the appropriate notices and notify the community at large of its intention to gather input, feedback, and opinions. So we'd hope that their efforts would be wide-reaching.
Yeah,
Mr. Winslow.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr.
I would also be willing to serve on this committee as well. So, I think we heard a big outpouring of support for vocational education in our schools, but I also think that it's important to strategically evaluate how that fits into our long-term curriculum and with the new facilities we can have at our high school. So I think I would like to serve on the committee. Thank you.
It's always good to have volunteers. Thank you. So on Ms. Abbott?
Thank you. If you were looking to try to get outside community members, if that's possible, would it be possible to have maybe a student representative from taking one of the vocational classes, so that way they can give their input as to what's working and what's not working?
We could certainly look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other suggestions, ideas, volunteers? Otherwise, on the motion, call the roll, please. To establish an ad hoc subcommittee on the topic of vocational education at Malden High School.
Mrs. Crowe?
Yes.
Mrs. D'Angelo?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Froyo?
Yes.
Mr. Iavino?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera-Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Altrino?
Yes.
Mr. Winslow?
Yes.
Mayor Howard?
Yes, good suggestion. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Froyo. Any other subcommittee updates? Otherwise, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda items. The approval of school committee 2009-2010 meeting schedule, revised yet again. Let's give this one a try.
Excuse me.
Questions on it? Mr. Altrino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anywhere in the policy, if we vote this schedule, which I'm fine with, but say in March or April, it happened to be like 3 or 4 members couldn't make it for some reason, is there a policy that we could change that March or April date or something like that, or is that something that has to be set in stone with the city clerk office?
If there's any finality to it at all. I think it's,
Okay.
Consistently.
I'm fine with it, but there's
Consistently amended.
sometimes comes a point where 2 or 3 members have an event or something, or...
I think this is an attempt by the
Yep.
clerk each year to
Okay.
have people's calendars become aligned so that we at least have some dates in common that we know that we can put together. And if we need additional ones, we have done that in the past, and we've also deleted. So, question, Mr. Winslow?
Yeah, I think the only requirement is that if we do cancel a meeting under the public meeting law, we have to give 48 hours notice, and a lot of times it is the prerogative of the chair to set dates or cancel dates as necessary, so I think...
It is, yeah. These aren't official dates yet. They still have to be posted, with the appropriate notice sent to the city clerk's office and posting.
Thank you.
Other questions on the proposed schedule? Any conflicts or motion to approve it?
Motion.
Mr. Altrino, and seconded by Mr. Ivino. And Ms. Crowe, and Ms. Rivera-Rogers. Mr. Froyo. Call the roll on the proposed schedule, please.
Mrs. Crowe? Yes. Mrs. D'Angelo?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Froyo?
Yes.
Mr. Iavino?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera-Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Altrino?
Yes.
Mr. Winslow?
Yes.
Mayor Howard?
Yes. That takes care of the proposed schedule. We are carrying forward from our executive session the topic of the memorandum of agreement between the Malden School Committee and the Service Employees International Union, Local 888, which represents the Malden cafeteria employees. It's been voted in executive session to accept the terms outlined in the memorandum. We need a motion in the open session to confirm that vote. Mr. Iavino so moves. We need a second. Second by Mr. Duffy. Questions on the proposed, or comments, observations on the proposed contract? Otherwise, we can put it to a vote. Call the roll on the proposed contract,
Mrs. Crowe?
please.
Mrs. D'Angelo?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Froyo?
Yes.
Mr. Iavino?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera-Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Altrino?
No.
Mr. Winslow?
No.
Mayor Howard?
It passes, but yes. No other items on the consent agenda. We can take points of personal privilege. Noting that this is our last meeting, but that could be subject to change, as we change these schedules all the time. Points of personal privilege. Mr. Froyo. Ms. Rivera-Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to wish all the children in the Malden Public School and the city of Malden happy and safe summer holidays.
Ditto on that. And I'd also like to thank Caitlin for all the time she's put in here. She's religiously come to all our meetings. Good luck in the future, but get your driver's license.
All right.
Mr. Winslow.
Ditto on those things. Also, get a bicycle too. That's I want to thank the janitorial staff. This weekend, the building crew was ready to take all the chairs out of the Jenkins Auditorium, but there was a dance recital scheduled for later on Saturday. So fortunately, the janitorial staff caught it before all the chairs were gone. So do appreciate that. I know one of the things that is potentially coming up is having a special meeting on increasing the price of meals at our schools. So I just want to, make sure that the public is aware of that. So this is one opportunity. We may have a meeting, so people should keep apprised that there may be a special school committee meeting to address that in the interest of making sure the public knows about price increases that are general. So I just wanted to make sure that is out there and known. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Winslow. Ms. D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ditto as well, and to all teachers and staff who are working this summer, have a healthy, happy working season. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Crowley.
Say ditto. Thank you. I just wanted to remind people actually that Ward 1's 4th of July. Weekend of events will start with a movie on the 3rd of July at Green Street Park, starting at 8. Popcorn and water provided. And on Saturday from 9 to 1 at Green Street Park.
Thank you, Ms. Crowe.
Just a quick reminder that if I don't see anyone over the summer, don't forget St. Rocco's Feast, 80th anniversary, August 7th, 8th, and 9th on Pearl Street in Malden. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy.
Thank you. Just a happy, healthy, and safe summer to all the teachers and students. Just like to remind everyone out there that if you need anything from me, please feel free to contact me. Let me know if there's any issues or information you want to share regarding anything we've done this past school year and possibly coming up in the next school year. And thank you again, and have a great summer.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Mr. Iavino.
Wonderful summer to our staff, our teachers, and our parents, and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iavino. Same here. Happy and healthy summer for all. See you back no later than September, but as Mr. Winslow has indicated, we might be back before that. Caitlin, we have a... Oh, she does. Well, before you say that, you may want to note that we have, because you might be critical here, so just want you to know we have a token of appreciation for all the time and effort you spent attending the committee meetings, and you were a great student representative, and we wish you all the best in your upcoming college career. We know you'll be back and forth to Malden, even though you may be leaving to live where you're going to school, and we invite you back to the school committee meetings anytime you see fit. So thank you very much for everything you did. You were a great student.
I was just going to thank you all for making me feel so welcomed and accepted here. And I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Need a motion to adjourn? Ms. Rivera-Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a matter of fact, we have had such a organized administration, such a supporting administration. Ms. Irene Oliver, Nancy Kasabian, the superintendent that's done a great job this year. It's the end of our school year. We need to say thank you very much. And Ms. Janice, that's always, always there. As a matter of fact, she'll be there during the summer for us, too. So I want to thank our staff and Ms. Janice for supporting us and being there by our side throughout the year. Thank you.
Good point, Mr. Rivera. We overlook that sometimes. Good work that everybody does for the entire school year. It was a very good one on behalf of all the public schools. Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.